What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Wednesday. Kevin King, the rookie corner for the Packers, has been placed on injured reserve. The team making the announcement a little while ago. A corresponding move, they bring up Dimitri Goodson off of injured reserve. He had been obviously missed all up until this part of the year due to the knee injury he suffered late in the year in 2016. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Just thought I'd hop on and talk a little bit about all the latest developments. Obviously, Kevin King to the injured reserve is a big blow to the Packers and their defense, especially with a string of quality wide receivers coming up on their schedule. It's really going to test Demarius Randall, Devon House, and company there in the secondary. Devon House, who himself is dealing with a shoulder injury and did not practice on Wednesday. So things are looking a little dire there at the cornerback spot for Green Bay. Now, the other bit of news, obviously the other kind of headline out of today is Aaron Rodgers throwing in front of reporters for the first time at practice. Nobody was allowed, the media was not allowed to watch any team stuff, which obviously never happens, but he was winging it around and throwing it 60 yards on a dime more than a few times. He looks powerful, he looks good. It'll be interesting to see if the Packers can pull out this victory in Cleveland, if they do indeed go ahead and declare him fit and ready to go heading into Carolina. But obviously that's getting ahead of ourselves. The main point is that Aaron Rodgers is throwing and looking good doing so. Randall has outplayed everyone at cornerback position, especially after that debacle in Chicago. Chad, that's a good point. I've been kind of, percolating along here with his play. I pointed out on Twitter yesterday, actually early this morning, sorry, these days all blend together. A lot had been made about his work against Deshaun Jackson in the Tampa Bay game, which was true, but he also did really strong work against Brait, the tight end, who is Winston's favorite target. You saw him catch that initial touchdown. Randall matched up with him quite a bit throughout, especially through the second half, and did a very good job on him. That bodes well. The ability to kind of mix and match and put him on different body types and different positions. He's definitely, played better and better week in and week out since that, benching on Thursday night against Chicago. He's still, going to be up and down at times. He's still going to struggle at certain areas, but for the most part, he has really turned it around. Adam's going to get some serious money after Alshon Jeffrey's contract extension. I totally agree. I've been saying all year long, I can't imagine that he doesn't try. Barring a really strong offer from the Packers, I can't imagine that he doesn't want to hit free agency, because with the salary cap going up a good $10 to $12 million every year, and teams just flush with cap space. I mean, you saw last offseason, teams have got boatloads of cap space. I can't imagine there's not a team out there that wouldn't throw big-time money at him. Paul, thoughts on Goodell's extension? Doesn't bode well for 2020 when the next collective bargaining agreement has to be negotiated. Because now with D in place there on the NFLPA side and Goodell in place on the NFL side, obviously these two have not worked well together throughout their tenures. They are very much like oil and water, and we all know how contentious it was last time around. I think that was going to be basically a dog and pony show compared to what we're in for in 2020. I think it's going to be very ugly, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. Chicago might throw money to Adams like it's nothing. Desperate need for a wide receiver. Chad, I agree. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Panthers lose to Minnesota and Green Bay, and Falcons lose twice to New Orleans. Do we control? I don't think they quite control, but it's close. You got to throw Seattle in that mix too. They're in there, and Detroit as well. Who plays most amongst DG, JH, and LP? That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. Capers has to go. We need to get some corners. Well, Kevin, it's funny you put those two together because, the more you look at this season play out, Capers clearly has his deficiencies, and they are well documented, and we all kind of see what they are week in and week out, and we're very used to them because he's been there for so long. However, you flip it around and you look at the personnel he's given year in and year out, and the fact that, he works for a general manager who never quite goes that extra step to get him that pass rusher he needs or that top flight corner that he needs. Whereas in any other NFL city, if you had this window for a championship and you needed to improve on defense, most places, not every place, but most places would go and get you an extra piece, would go and get you that pass rusher, that shutdown corner. Not a shutdown guy, because they don't really exist, but a top flight corner, one of the better guys available in free agency, just to try and help and turn that corner. But that never happens in Green Bay. And I tend to think Mike McCarthy, it's been going on, percolating kind of underneath the surface since around 2014, when my former colleague Bob McGinn reported that McCarthy was very frustrated with Thompson's approach. You have to think that extends to the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's part of the reason why McCarthy has been so loyal to Capers, because he knows he's operating under the same type of restrictions that Mike is on offense when it comes to personnel, personal gathering, personal acquirement. So, and that's not an excuse. I don't think, I think at this point Capers has probably run his course in Green Bay, but my opinion doesn't matter. The only one that matters is Mike McCarthy, and I tend to think that might be where he's coming from. So an article about future head coaches on ESPN, what coaches on the Packers staff have head coach potential. It's really hard to gauge that because we aren't privy to what they do week in and week out throughout the week. We get our one little kind of window there where they're up there at the podium. But talking to players and just seeing how they handle the media, I would say, Joe Witt Jr. to me is a future head coach. I know Packer fans like to kind of get on him because the secondary is an issue year in and year out, especially in the playoffs. I tend to think that is not Joe Witt's issue. I think that is much more Ted Thompson's issue. But I think Joe Witt Jr. does a fantastic job with his crew, and I think he does a great job at the podium in front with the media, which, let's face it, is a big component of the job today. Congrats to Dean Lowry, named Defensive Player of the Week. He was indeed. It's interesting. He was named Defensive Player of the Week for, probably because he was Johnny on the spot with the touchdown. Ball bounces right to him. Now, granted, you got to grab it, you got to go, and he did that. Then he had a sack where they were trying to set up a screen, and they let him loose, and he basically went right at the quarterback unblocked. Now, he played, fine other than that, but I don't think there was anything outstanding in his play outside of those two moments. But, heck, you make those big splash plays, you get recognized for it. What are Rodgers' odds to play after today? Well, Daniel, it all depends on Sunday. If they beat the Cleveland Browns, then things will ratchet up. We'll start hearing about a scan, and we'll see how healthy he is, and if he's cleared by the doctors, and then he will come off IR, and then we'll be cooking with gas. But until they beat Cleveland, it's all just speculation, and it really doesn't matter, because if they don't beat Cleveland, which, by the way, is a distinct possibility, if they don't beat Cleveland, I can't imagine any scenario in where Rodgers comes back. So, kind of an important game on Sunday. Packers shot themselves by letting Hayward walk. I'm sorry I didn't get the rest of it because it was flying by real fast. I will say, I thought Bob McGinn wrote a great piece 2 years ago about Hayward and about how it was the right call to let him go. Given the information that they had, I totally agree with that assessment. I think, obviously Hayward's gone on to great success in San Diego, and there's no denying what he's done. And obviously you have regret as a general manager, let alone a fan. But as a general manager, this guy went other places and has done great things, and obviously you're going to regret that decision. But at the time, given the information that he had, it's hard to fault Thompson for letting him go. It's not like he had been injured on and off, and it's not like he had become this great ball hawk throughout his 4 years in Green Bay, and they had guys waiting in the wings that they had drafted. They wanted to get on the field. So that one I'm never going to be able to really go in on Thompson for. The Hyde thing, letting Hyde walk, is a little bit more perplexing to me, just because I thought he really fit what they were talking about when they talk about draft and develop. The fact that this guy played his best ball in his fourth year, was a great locker room guy, really versatile, did anything that he was asked, and then you don't even make him an offer. And I get they wanted to get faster, they wanted to get, they wanted to switch their team, play more nitro, etc. I get all that. But the guy just improved every year. And now you see him in Buffalo, he's even better. It's like, that's exactly what you want. Draft and develop. And he was developing, and then you let him walk away. It's not like Hayward. Hayward had a great rookie year, and he was injured, and then he was up and down, and he wasn't really productive, and you kind of understood, okay, let this guy walk, let these other guys get on the field. But with Hyde, you saw continual growth throughout his 4 years in Green Bay, and then you just let him walk. That will always be weird to me. Goodson getting time this weekend? Yeah, I think mostly on special teams. I can't imagine they're going to throw him right into the fire from scrimmage. I think you'll see Hawkins a lot more. But yeah, I think Goodson will play on special teams. That's where they preferred him prior to the injury. I know he was thrown into duty a couple times last year, most notably against Atlanta, where he got torched. But yeah, he will. I tend to think he won't play that much from scrimmage. Hundley has been inconsistent this season, but seems to perform good. Sorry, they go too fast. I agree, he's been inconsistent. He's played well at the end of games, which is kind of funny. And within that first script, that first 15 plays. But in between, it's been a little rough. What's the Williams and Jones workload going to be like? Alex, you and every other fantasy player would love to know. I tend to think Williams will still be the lead ball carrier and will get the bulk of the carries, with Jones being kind of a change of pace. I know my colleague Tom Silverstein wrote that they need to feature Jones. I know a lot of my colleagues agree with that assessment. I'm pretty sure that's how Pete Doherty sees it, and I think that's how Ryan Wood sees it. I disagree. I think you got to ride Williams. He's the power back. Basically, soften up that defense using Williams as a battering ram, and then you bring Jones along as kind of the lightning to his thunder to take advantage of some tired legs. That's how I would do it. I think, especially because Williams is much better in pass protection. And in this offense, you're going to need Williams out there, not only now protecting Hundley, but especially if you win this game and then Rodgers comes back, you absolutely want Williams in there over Jones just for the pass protection aspect. You got your franchise quarterback just off of injury. You don't want Aaron Jones mess up in pass protection, basically putting him back on the shelf. Josh Jones a better fit at linebacker? That's a good question, Eric. He does look a little lost at safety, especially at deep safety. He plays better towards the line of scrimmage. Now, I think a big part of that is what they see in him is an eventual replacement to what Morgan Burnett does, or at least a complement to it. You saw him in that Cincinnati game. He really affected the game, and all of his big plays came at the line of scrimmage or toward when he was coming down into the box. He has looked absolutely lost in space, and when he's asked to play that deep safety, he just has not looked comfortable. Now, this is an extension of what we saw this summer, and Darren Perry had mentioned it a few times, both in camp and in the offseason program, that he was, Josh Jones is swimming, and Lord, does it show up on tape. I think another offseason, you let him go, you let him come back, you go through another offseason with him, and hopefully that shores up a little bit, because I think he can play safety in this league. I just think right now he's thinking way too much. I was saying that Hundley should be good on Sunday, seems to do better after bad performances. I would tend to agree. That has been the pattern, but that's no gimme. But I think much more so than bad performances, it seems he plays better on the road. I was talking about it with a couple guys in the press box on Sunday. I don't know, for whatever reason, he seems to seize up in Lambeau. I don't know if it's the pressure of not wanting to make a mistake, and then he does make a mistake, but on the road, he seems to be a little looser and a little more comfortable. And I don't know what to attribute that to, other than the surroundings. But, for the Packers' sake, you got to hope that holds true this Sunday in Cleveland. Chad, Elliott Wolf and the Giants make sense. Yeah, I think maybe they'll reach out, maybe they'll talk to him, but I just think Dave Gettleman is a shoo-in there. I mean, former Giants guy, built a Super Bowl contender down in Carolina, knows the organization real well. I know it ended abruptly in Carolina, but I got to imagine he's one of their first interviews, and I would be surprised if he's not the hire. Maybe he can't get the correct gum in Green Bay. Matthew, that is a phenomenal comment. Well done. Thoughts on Giants' mess of a season? It was kind of set up this way when you had Jerry Reese as the general manager who's been coasting along for so long, and then they force-fed this Ben McAdoo nonsense onto a roster that had no offensive line and no running game to speak of. Well, you're not going to have Eli Manning back there doing what Aaron Rodgers does. He's just not that quarterback, and which is essentially what they were asking him to do. They were running McCarthy's offense with a much less talented quarterback. So that was doomed from the start. And then on the other side, they spent all this money on the defensive side of the ball in free agency, which coalesced very well last year, especially against the run. But then injuries early on, and they lost a few games, and it all spiraled out of control. The guys stopped trying. You saw all the dissension, all the suspensions, all the stuff that McAdoo was dealing with. Some of it self-made. I'm not surprised by any of it. And the fact that Jerry Reese held his job as long as he did was the only thing that really surprised me. How much did you see Devontae asking for? 10 million a year? I think of more than that. Maybe that's what he gets from the Packers if he decides to take a hometown discount, and that's a discount. I think much more along. If he hits the open market, I could see him getting 12. Absolutely. Beagle more involved in the pass rush for the remainder of the season. I think you'll see more of him if Nick Perry's unable to go, which he wasn't able to go at practice today, or he was limited. I can't remember which. But regardless, yeah, they're going to need him. They're going to absolutely need fresh bodies and fresh legs. Raji coming back. Not yet, Jason. I know it's in the cards at some point, but we will see. They will offer Adams Donald Driver money. I could see that. Adams isn't on that Hopkins level. Well, maybe not physically, but all it takes is one team to like you. And like I said, the salary cap going up $10-12 million per year makes whatever player A signed for 2 or 3 years ago doesn't mean a whole lot coming this offseason. I absolutely agree as far as just a pure physical prospect. Yes, Hopkins is on another level. But as far as financial tiers go, Adams could easily make that in this offseason. How do we get Kevin Green back as defensive coordinator? Why do people want Kevin Green back? I don't understand. He quit on the Packers. And so many people want to bring him back. I get he's like all fiery and fun, and he said it is time, and you get goosebumps when you watch the Super Bowl highlights. I get all that. But he quit. He quit on the Packers. And he came back and coached for the Jets. And you all want him back? This is weird for me. I mean, I get it. I mean, like I said, intense guy, a lot of fun. I got it. But he quit on you guys. And you want to bring him back? It's just weird. Cut Cobb, sign Adams. Just saying to troll you. Well done, Alex. Well done indeed. Worried about Duke Johnson and those screens. Alex, you should be. The screen game has carved the Packers up for the last month and a half. And I don't see anything changing when Capers meets Hugh Jackson. In fact, I think Hugh Jackson's probably going to eat Capers' lunch a little bit. Maybe Jordy retires. He was asked about retirement this summer, and he said he wanted to play, through this contract, which is another couple years. So I don't think retirement is in the cards quite yet. And I do think you'll see Jordy's production bump up significantly once Rodgers is back under center. Will they bring in anyone to compete with Crosby next year? I doubt it. Why not pay him? He is our future number 1 wide receiver. Well, if they pay him, he will be. If they don't pay him, then he won't be. How's that for some analysis? Who covers Josh Gordon? Adam. To quote Gary Oldman in Leon or The Professional, everyone. I think they'll throw everybody at him. They'll throw every combo that they got. I think you'll see Devon House if he's good to go. You'll see Demarius Randall. You'll see a safety over the top almost all the time. I think they'll try every combo in the book. I think Demarius Randall probably gets the first shot and will probably try to stick with him. But I just tend to imagine Josh will get his, and then Capers will start mixing stuff up. But we'll see. Trade House for Raji. Now you're talking. Clay was huge for us last game. We need that big time. Well, it helps that he was going against subpar competition. He should be beating these backup tackles, and he did, and that's good. He was productive. And the tackles now with Joe Thomas out in Cleveland, he should maybe not have the time that he had against Tampa Bay, but he should find some ways to the quarterback this weekend. And yes, you're absolutely right. They absolutely need that. Their ability to get to the QB with just 4 will be paramount down the stretch, no doubt about it. Will House go Sunday? Cameron, stay tuned. We'll find out. He was not participating today. I know he hurt that shoulder on the deep ball at the left sideline where he broke it up against Evans on Sunday, but we'll see. TBD. Gordon is going to have his coming back party against the Packers. Jason, I would not put it past them. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Now, maybe it's Demarius Randall, maybe Capers just sticks Demarius Randall on him, and Randall balls out, and he ends up being limited, but it's not how I'm feeling it right now. But we'll see. House needs to be let go in the offseason. Well, he doesn't need to be let go because he's on a 1-year deal, so his deal will be up in the offseason. And I tend to think, yes, they will let him walk. Over under 40 rush attempts for the Packers. I'll say under. Who is the QB in Cleveland? It's Deshaun Kaiser, a product of Notre Dame who probably should have stayed in school for one more year, but who, funnily enough, was attached to the Packers during the draft by both Rob Demovsky of ESPN and Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. Both said that the Packers were interested in him on the second day. So you got to think that there was some legitimate interest there. Now, whether they would have actually pulled the trigger, I doubt it, but somebody the Packers liked, and now they get to face him as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. If we lose against Cleveland, will that finally spell the end of Capers? Not necessary, Daniel. I mean, if they shut them down and it's like they lose 12-9, then yeah, I hardly doubt that's the tipping point. Jerry says, I like Michael Clark. Jerry, you're not alone. You have to think the main reason that the Packers elevated him to the 53-man roster is because another team was asking about him and probably approached him, because he is his own agent, about signing him to their squad. And so the Packers most likely called him up to protect their asset there. Chad, Cleveland is a trap game. Yeah, actually, I don't think so. I think all the pressure in the world is on the Packers in this game. It's hard to call it a trap game when everybody knows that if you lose, you are the first team to lose to the Cleveland Browns in 2017. Not only that, but if you lose, you have pretty much sealed your fate as far as the playoffs go, as far as seeing Aaron Rodgers again. There's a whole lot of pressure, and it's hard for me to believe that they're going to look past this game. Now, that doesn't make it any less stressful for them or alleviate anything as far as pressure on McCarthy and company, but yeah, it's hard for me to say it's a trap game. The Packers are a trap game for the Browns. Well done, Connor. Keep McCarthy, Nelson, Cobb, beef up the D a little, figure out who's running the ball. Well, I think they've figured out who's running the ball. Edwin, hello. Thank you for the kind greeting. Still think Jeff Janis deserves snaps. Cards playoff game showed us what he can do. Yeah, he can run straight, fast, and catch deep balls. Unfortunately, in most situations, that doesn't really help you if teams know that's all you can do, because then they just play you for it. He hasn't shown much of a predilection for actual route running or adjustments or reading coverages. Those are all things you really need to be able to do as an NFL wide receiver. The Packers need to bring in Rex Ryan as defensive coordinator. Juan, I've been stumping for that for a few years. Now that he's on television, I doubt he's coming back to the league. I mean, it's too easy a life when you're there in the studio. To come back to the grind of coaching seems far-fetched to me. Where do the rookie running backs put Montgomery? Good question, William. I tend to think he'll remain at running back and or as a slash kind of player. I think they'll use him mostly on third downs, situationally. Maybe a little bit of wide receiver as well. They'll still use him as an asset for the offense. I think he'll line up in the slot. He'll do a lot of maybe what they asked Randall Cobb to do. But they're not done with him by any means. Randy puts it succinctly, run the table. Well, they're going to try. Odds we target a QB in the draft, Daniel, I'd say they're pretty good. Hundley coming up on the last year of his deal. I think it makes sense, but we'll see. Call Gruden. Call him what, Jerry? Glad to see we were putting Raji at corner to take King's place. That's outstanding. All right, a succession of Raji jokes means it's time for me to go. Thanks so much, everyone. Sorry if I didn't get to your question. They do go rather fast, but I'll be back tomorrow around this time, so make sure you're checking back. In the meantime, check out PackersNews.com for all the latest from today, all the latest from practice, and throughout the week leading up to the game on Sunday in Cleveland. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.